Welcome to my podcast, Chat with Loki. It's about sharing stories of grit, resilience, wisdom from unseen, unheard, everyday heroes of life.
Because of her reaction.
Yeah.
And then she's like, I want to speak to my daughter. I want to speak to me. Are you okay? Like she's, hyperventilating almost.
Of course, yeah.
Yes, Mum, I'm okay. I got on the wrong flight and, I'm here. I've got some money. I've got to do the visa. And, okay, where are they going to put you? They're saying they're going to put me in a hotel. No, they can't put you in a hotel. Do you know how bad that country is and how are you going to get? And she's like...
freaking out.
Major freak out.
Yeah.
And then my elder sister gets on the phone. So much calmer, she's bilingual too. And, So my elder sister kind of sorts out the situation. They end up taking me to the hotel where the flight crew stay. I get a room on the flight crew level. I'm going to get the first flight out that they're going to be on so that I can get flown back to America.
Okay.
So that I can get my flight back into South America. So it's a full shit show. And so that happens. The morning I get the knock on the door, get ready, get taken, get back. They have to obviously inform my family in South America that are waiting for me because I never arrived. So my mum gets first a phone call from my uncle saying, your daughter hasn't arrived.
Yeah.
Because I still hadn't landed yet. And then
they don't know the story behind it.
They don't know the story why I haven't arrived. And then my mum gets a phone call and then obviously they put two and two together. Yeah. This is why she hasn't arrived. Long story short, I finally arrive in South America. So it was absolutely by plane and it was a long way to get there, but that's how I got there.
Okay, as a 15-year-old, what was going in your head when you look now?
I look back now and I was scared. Looking back
that's
now,
quite normal, yeah.
I was scared. I didn't know I had a lot of... Despite what had happened to me, as a child, because my close network and my parents were very strong, positive role models, I still trusted in adults. So I trusted that they were going to sort this out for me and that they were going to do what was right by me because they weren't the ones that perpetrated against me.
You believe in humanity.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Yeah, and that's probably where again, that deep-seated belief that I have that if you give people an opportunity, they'll show you their goodness, and maybe that's why I was in the fear and the scared state that I was in. I was still calm because it's there's adults here, and they're gonna fix it because adults generally tend to do the good thing by kids,
But this is one example of the answering your kindness.
Yeah. There's one example there, yeah.
One example, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, 15-year-old girl.
Yeah.
What an experience.
What an adventure, right? From the get-go.
Even this day, that would be crazy.
Yeah. Can you imagine a 15-year-old from this day and age that's like this in a situation like that?
Oh, no. Yeah, there would be all alarm bells going off.
They'd melt.
Yeah.
They'd melt.
Absolutely. I don't think there will be any thought process. Wow, okay. So, it's beautiful. So you experienced, all things when you're young, but you always had the support of your family and you always had this something instilled in you, within you, that humanity is for greater good and that kindness is always not sometimes, it always comes back. There is a beautiful quote. Always throw a good deed in the river. One day, when you're lost in the desert, it comes back.
I absolutely agree.
And a lot of times people are saying, no, I want it now. I'm like, no, it will come to you when you really need it.
Yeah.
But keep doing good deeds.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, not to blow my own trumpet, but I've always, I see a homeless person or someone that's down and trodden, and I'll buy them a meal. And I don't tell anybody about it. I don't film myself doing it on social media because it's nobody's business.
Well, sorry, I had to laugh here because half of social media is just showing their charity, so-called charity, and they're doing charity for attention. They're doing
For
charity
likes.
for validation, for likes, for increasing followers. And I'm like,
That's not charity.
that's ego at
Yeah.
its highest peak.
Absolutely.
It's crazy, but these are the things. One of the reasons why I have this podcast is capturing everyday heroes doing all the good deeds when no one's watching. They chose to do this because they believe in humanity, or they believe in family, they believe, or they have faith, and they believe in themselves, and all. It's not celebrated. But then there is other side where that's why there's so many influencers and fake influencers and all these things. And I think people are slowly starting to realize what's real, what's authentic, and what's fake. And it's great to hear those stories, especially helping the ones who are in need.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm gonna have some water.
Please do. We all need that. Apparently, we can live without food for, I think, 20 days or 30 days. But
Yeah.
without water,
Pardon me.
only 3 days.
Yeah, that's right. Well, when you do fasting, I was doing fasting before I got sick, and I lost a whole bunch of weight on it.
Oh,
And we would fast for like 72 hours. You can fine once
sorry. You do fasting on a regular basis, or?
At the minute, no, because I obviously need to rebuild my
Yes,
strength and everything. But I was prior to getting ill.
Okay.
And I lost nearly 20 kilos doing fasting, and I felt amazing. And so, yeah, you're absolutely correct. I didn't eat. I would fast for 72 hours, so no food for 72 hours, just water.
Why did you do fasting?
I guess for a lot of reasons. One of them was, I was 39 at the time, so hitting that 40 mark.
Yeah.
Not happy with my weight. I was taking a lot of medication that made me put on weight, steroids in particular, and I couldn't shift the weight, and I had noticed a lot of weight come on. So that was one of the factors,
Yeah.
health factors.
Yeah.
And I was in a phase of kind of evaluating everything, evaluating my life, where I'm at, my relationships,
Yeah.
I guess hitting midlife, and I had ticked all of these things. I'd travelled, and I got a great family, and I got a husband, but why am I feeling like I'm not?
Something's missing.
Something's missing, and
Yeah.
and I was projecting that out into my relationship. Like it's obviously my relationship. It's my husband. He's lacking. And then when I stopped and I looked, and I was like, well, no, actually, I think it's something in me.
Yeah.
And with the fasting, whilst it started off as something for a weight loss thing to get healthy again because of all the toxicity and the medication, it ended up becoming something more internal about this is something that I was able to control. I was able to control kind of what came into my body. And I was able to really process some things from my past. It was like a way of me processing certain things,
Yeah.
of regaining control of my body, because I had realised that the body that got me to that point and the way that it was because I was probably subconsciously allowing other things to control that I hadn't resolved. Somebody else had a power over me subconsciously.
Yeah.
And so it became about that, about how I controlled the state of my being through this. And when you're not eating and you're not focused on food all the time. Because when you remove that, I realized, wow, we're so hyper-focused on what we're eating. What are we going to have for breakfast? What are we going to have for lunch? What are we going to have for dinner?
So food is for comfort.
Right?
Yeah.
And then when you remove that hyper-focus on that, it frees up so much space to think about other things, and your mind is in such a clearer space as well. You're not foggy anymore. You're waking up, jumping out of bed, going, okay,
Yes.
I feel amazing. And you can focus. And I know my husband was along this journey with me as well.
Yeah.
And he reported the same things. And when we were fasting and when we were in that state, we were feeling at our best in all aspects.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I have a deep connection with fasting. My mother used to fast every Saturday. Saturdays, nothing. She just used to drink maybe a glass of water with lemon. That's it. And since I was a kid, I was just wondering why she does this. And she always says, it's just... And the other thing she does is she doesn't talk.
Oh, while she's fasting?
Yes.
She takes a vow of silence. I'm sure Paul would like me to take a vow of silence.
I'm like, we all know in the family, it's Saturday, mom will still cook, still does all the things, but she has a sign language, and then she doesn't eat anything. And we're all eating like pigs. And I didn't understand when I was a kid why she's doing it.
How bizarre.
Yeah, one day she said, it's just, it's for the God. I said, okay. And only I understood that at a later stage in my life, when I started doing it. And normally on the weekends, I go for treks. I go into, national parks or something. I don't eat anything. Normally, this is not recommended. Normally what they say, take enough water, take some food. You might be lost in the bush, all those things. I don't take anything. I just simply leave in the morning. I just go, I just walk all day. 15, 20, 25K. And then I get back home, and that's when it's already dark. That's when I drink and eat whatever I need to. But one thing I noticed is I was so connected with my own thoughts. I can observe my thoughts. I can observe myself. I can truly appreciate the purity within me. There's no, as you said before, we get clouded or, the vision is not clear. And I started. And then after that, I was like, wow, this is free. And it's beautiful experience. So I would have done, 250 to 500 walks just in Sydney, Melbourne, just around every national park you could think of. My footprint is made.
Yeah.
So fasting for me is something my mother taught me subconsciously, and I follow that. Even today, I follow that till date. I always make sure, when there is something important in my life I'm doing, I don't eat.
Yeah. That's really
And I haven't had breakfast this morning. And I don't have breakfast. Yeah. And maybe I'll have coffee or, something liquid, but no solid.
Yeah.
And because that keeps me alive, that keeps me present. And I'm listening, not just listening. Every time you're telling me something, you took me to Cuba.
Yeah.
I was in streets of Cuba. And I was in jungles, South American jungles. The images we have watching all these movies or documentaries and stuff, they're all playing around. And then now the last image was a 15-year-old stuck in an airport.
In
with
San
all
Salvador.
Yeah, it's like, oh God, there's normally the images you have is, there's all these, narcos and guns and, military rule, all those things. And then, things like family cooking. I don't know how your kitchen looks like, but I already have an image.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of it. It's kind of like it gives you a vision so clear. like as if it's happening in front of you right now. And that experience is pure.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about health, illness. Tell a little bit more about, what is this fasting and medication and illness you have gone through?
So around about the time that I was 30, I started noticing bruises on my body. I lost some weight. My hair was falling out. I had like really rapid heart palpitations. And I kind of just put it all down. I was fatigued.
Yeah.
And I kind of put it down to, well, I've got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. I'm a stay-at-home mum. I'm running around. I'm busy doing some part-time work here and there. It's probably that. Went to the doctor and went to the doctor for something else, and the doctor noticed my bruising. And I'm talking like substantial bruises, like really big, kind of deep purple bruising. And the doctor was like, "What happened there?" I said, they're just
So it just
popping
happened
up.
overnight?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, they're just kind of popping up.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, popping up where?" And I was like, "Oh, kind of under here, and in odd places, between my legs, in places where you wouldn't normally bang yourself."
Yes, yeah.
And so he said, "Well, let's do a blood test because that seems odd." And I was like, "Well, why do you think that is?" And he said, "Well, all of the signs that you're saying, it could be leukemia." And I was like, "Whoa, what do you mean?" Anyway, get my blood test done. We're out with the family, get a phone call. It was on a Sunday, and the whole family were out watching, those cinemas that they have in the outdoor cinemas. Those things during the summer. Open air cinemas, that's the one. We're out, we're having a family day, get a phone call, it's a doctor saying, "Hey, your blood results aren't great. We're a bit concerned. You should probably come back and do another test. It could just be an error as well." Anyway, so I'm freaking out, and I go back the next day, get the blood test done. That week, calls me in and says, "Hey, you've got this blood disorder. It's not leukemia, thank goodness, but you've got this blood disorder called ITP, so immunothrombopenipurina, right?
Oh.
Where my bone marrow doesn't produce enough quality platelets. So that's hence the bruising. So you touch me and I would like a little thing like that and then it would just spread and I'd get a massive bruise. It's treatable. We need to put you on medication. So I go on this trial drug medication and I go on steroids. So I'm on steroids now from around about the age of 31 by the time this happens.
The moment they said that to you, what was your initial response?
When I got told that I had ITP.
ITP, yeah.
Thank goodness it's not leukemia, because that's what he thought that it was, the bruising and the symptoms.
Yeah. So there was a bit of a relief, even though it wasn't all clear.
And then, as I, had further investigations, I realised that, I had a deficient immune system, and I went to see another doctor and I was told I had SLE, which is lupus, and my ITP was caused by the lupus, and I had photosensitivity. So photosensitivity, I was always allergic to the sun. This is going to sound really bizarre, but now it makes sense. So ever since I was a small child, I'd always break out in rashes, and the doctors would say, "Oh, it's mites. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that." But looking back now, it would only happen in the summertime. So once I got my diagnosis that I had SLE and the SLE was this was one of the things.
Okay, so there's ITP, there's SLE. Okay, there's a lot of terms here.
Yeah.
Just in a layman terms.
So SLE is systemic lupus.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does it do?
Well, it can impact people very differently.
Okay.
So it can manifest, it can give you blood disorders, which is what it gave me. It can impact your major organs. It can manifest in skin rashes. It can, sore joints.
So the problem is the pellets of the bones?
Yeah, so my bone marrow was not producing enough platelets.
That made you weak
Yeah, I was
Okay.
iron deficient. I had
basically your whole
anemia.
body is kind of
Deficient.
deficient. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I get told that there's this trial medication that my hematologist has been working on for many years, and it's
Yeah.
still in trial phase through the Prince Alfred
Yeah.
Hospital.
Newton.
Yes. And I was a bit like, I don't really want to go on that. I don't know a lot about it. And
Yeah.
surely there's a better way. Can I fix this with diet? Can I fix this with this? So that's why it took me a year to actually get onto that, because I wanted something alternative. I was like, I don't really want to pump my body full of this stuff. Can't be good.
So the moment you realize this is what you have, the doctor said, this is the plan we have for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, no, I want to see if there is something else.
Yeah.
What was that thought process?
I think now looking back with all of the therapy that I've done, it was, again, another moment where I had no control over my body, because remember, control of my body had been taken away from me in a very violent way.
Yeah.
So now you're telling me that I, again, do not have control over what happens to my body.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to try and find something else. I know that now.
Yeah.
That's what was happening subconsciously. In the moment, I didn't know that that's what
You
was
just
happening.
needed more time.
I just needed more time.
Yeah.
And I hadn't found the fasting and all of that at that stage.
Yeah.
So in the end, I went down the traditional path and I said, yes, sign me up for this trial drug called Eltrombopag. And yes, I'll take the steroids. And I did that for nearly 10 years.
Wow.
And in that time, I put on weight whilst it managed the condition, fluctuated here and there.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I was okay
Yeah.
until I wasn't. And then 39 came along, so 9 years already, or close to 9 years on this traditional style of medication. And reevaluating, my weight, my health, my everything,
Yeah.
readdressing this control issue over, my body. And I was starting to get issues with my spleen. And this was probably the motivating factor, the true motivating factor for going alternative.
Yeah.
So my spleen was starting to enlarge. And what that meant was that if it continued to enlarge, that it would potentially need to be removed, which is major surgery, removing a spleen.
Yeah. Wow.
And I thought, you're not taking my spleen. You're absolutely not taking my spleen. Like, this is not good. There has got to be a better way. And so I started my research.
Okay.
And my research led me down the path of, I found Dr. Mindy Peltz, who is a huge advocate and explains in a very easy way to digest what fasting is and how fasting should be done, especially for women.
All right.
And so shared my knowledge that I had learnt with my husband, did a lot of research on it, had a friend as well who wanted to lose weight, and I said, hey, let's do this together.
Yeah.
And so we set off on our merry way on the 1st of January of 2025 to start fasting and to see, and because I was getting blood tests done every month, I knew that I was going to have the data to see, is this working?
Yeah.
And so when I started my fasting, my platelets were sitting at 24, so 24,000. Healthy platelet range, just to give you an idea, minimum is 150.
150,000. Yeah.
To I think about 400,000. So that's
So you're on 24K instead of 150K.
Yeah, the lowest I got to was 5. So they do it they just say 5. So 5 platelets, which is equivalent to 5,000.
Okay.
So when I started this journey, I was sitting at 24,000.
Yeah.
So I had done a month of fasting, had dropped some weight. My next blood test that I had to go see my doctor in 6 weeks' time, my results were 54,000.
Wow.
Then my next results were 75,000. And then before I got sick, my last results were sitting at 90,000, so close to 100,000. And I remember my husband was with me, going and seeing the doctor, and he was like, "What are you doing differently? Have you upped your prednisone? Are you taking more prednisone?" And I said, "No. All I'm doing is fasting. I'm fasting."
How often you're fasting at that time?
I was fasting, so I was doing a 24-hour fast every week. And then every 4 to 6 weeks, I was doing a 72-hour fast.
So 1 day a week and then 3 days, yeah.
Consecutive,
Wow.
yeah. And I was seeing the results of that, not only in my blood work, but in how I was feeling. So I knew I'm onto something here.
Nice.
This is working.
Yeah.
You're not taking my spleen. I'm increasing my platelets, and all I'm doing is fasting because I'm getting my body into a state of autophagy where it's killing all the free radicals, getting rid of all of the my body wants to repair itself. And that's what I've learned through my journey. Your body wants to be healthy. It has the ability to heal itself. We just have to let it. We've got to give it the things to do what it needs to do. So I get to that point, and I've dropped probably close to like 20 kilos. So I was at my heaviest when I started at around 110.
Wow.
And you saw my height, not that tall.
Yeah.
And this is just from steroids. Steroids are just so nasty, and taking them for nearly a decade.
Yeah. And also it would have influenced on your mood and thoughts.
Yeah. Everything. So I started feeling unwell.
Yeah.
I started feeling really tired, like really fatigued.
Yeah.
I was getting bruising, but because by this stage there were certain things that I knew when my platelets were dropping,
Yeah.
it kind of manifested itself in my body. So bruising, unexplained bruising, my platelets are probably low. Feeling really tired, my iron's probably low, which is something that would happen to me, or I'm feeling a bit anemic. So I was like, I wasn't too concerned. I was like, you know what? I'm seeing the doctor in a couple of weeks. I'll have my blood test. It's probably just my platelets are low. We might need to tweak my medication.
Yeah.
And then I started having headaches. And when I started having headaches, I was like, this is not a normal symptom.
Yeah.
For me,
Yeah.
for my thing. And I thought, maybe I'm just tired. I'm working full time now. I've got teenagers.
Yeah. It's just you thought life. Yeah.
It's just life.
Yeah.
And at the time as well, my mum had a knee replacement surgery.
Yeah.
So my sister and I, that lives close, we were taking turns caring, going over, changing the bed sheets, cooking dinner, all of that type of stuff, right?
Yeah.
On top of our own family life.
Yeah.
So I thought it was all of that. And then I woke up with a fever. I had a fever. And that's when I knew, okay, I never get fevers with my condition.
Okay.
Something's not right. I should probably go see the doctor. And it was my turn to go see my mum.
Yeah.
And so I went to go see my mum, dropped my daughter off at work, came to my mum with the food and gave her the food, and I just threw myself on the couch. And she was like, Ihita, what's wrong? Ihita is daughter. It's like Ihita, what's wrong? And I said, Mum, I'm still not feeling well. So this is now the 3rd week of not feeling well.
Yeah.
I said, I'm still not feeling well. I'm still really tired. And, she saw the bruise and she's like, bruises are really big. And I said, yeah, the headaches haven't stopped as well. So we're almost at a week of headaches.
Yeah.
Non-stop. And I was sweating a lot of sweating as well, especially at night. And I said, Mum, I've had 2 nights now of fevers. And she said, that's not good. You might have an infection. You need to go to the doctor tomorrow. And so I heeded my mum's advice.
Yeah.
And I went the next day, went to the doctor, just to my GP, and I said, I need a blood test, having these symptoms. I've had fevers, so I think might have some form of infection. And then school holidays, so we're in the school holiday period, so the September, October school holidays. And I'm at the kitchen sink washing up, thinking nothing of it, right? Thinking nothing of this blood test. This is just a routine blood test. It's just going to tell me that I'm sick, take some antibiotics, and we're done.
Yeah.
Washing the dishes. And my phone rings, answer it, put it on the speaker. And it's not even my doctor, it is the pathologist
Yeah.
that calls and says, oh, hi, I've got your results. So this is the next day. This all happened really fast.
Yeah.
And I'm still washing the dishes, yes. And she says, we've got your blood results and they're not normal. And I went, oh, okay, thinking it's my ITP. She doesn't know me. She doesn't know my history.
Yeah.
She's probably seen a really low platelet count.
Yeah.
Alarm bells are going off. And I said, oh, I've got ITP. Are my platelets low? And she said, yes, they are low, but that's not what we're concerned about. And I was like, oh, okay. And she said there was a moment of silence. It was silence.
Yeah.
Still washing, and I'm thinking, what's going on?
Yeah.
And she says, it's suspected acute myeloid leukemia. And Lockie, when I tell you that I dropped that glass in that sink, I dropped that glass in that sink.
Wherever you got the relief that it's not it comes back.
Yeah. And she said, are you there, Vanessa?
Yeah.
And I turned the tap off. My kids were home. Paul was in Bathurst working. Yeah. And I said, yeah, I am.
Yeah.
And I said to her, but it's just suspected, right? Doesn't mean that I have that. And she said, yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
But you need to take yourself to the emergency department right now. She said, she's going to send the information over to the doctor, and the doctor's going to send you a letter with everything that you need, and you take yourself to the emergency department right now.
Wow.
And I said, okay. And I stood at my kitchen sink. My kids were in their rooms.
Yeah.
They didn't hear the conversation. And I just stood there for a minute, just processing what I'm hearing and thinking, this is wrong. They've gotten it wrong. Somehow they've gotten it wrong.
Yeah, something's not right.
Something's not right. They've gotten it wrong. And so because I told myself that, okay, they've gotten it wrong, I just kind of went, okay, right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything to my kids because I'm not going to scare them unnecessarily. They don't need to know.
Yeah.
I'm going to call my husband.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I called him and I was calm. I wasn't crying anymore. And I said, this is what's happened. Because he knew that I was unwell before he left, and he actually said to me, you should probably go to the doctor. And I was like, no, it's just this.
So your husband, your mother, everyone's just gave you simple advice. Go to the doctor.
Yeah.
Get some blood tests done.
Yeah. And so I called him and he answered, and I told him.
Yeah.
And I could hear that this was news that he didn't want to be receiving. But here I was.
No one wants that.
Giving him this news.
Yeah.
And he said, do you want me to come home? And me being my stoic self that I am, I said, well, no, like, you're there for 3 days.
Yeah.
You've made a commitment there. You need to be there. And plus, this is suspected. We don't know if this is not confirmed. Let me go to the hospital. Let me do whatever they tell me to do. And when we know what it is, then we will navigate those waters. But for right now, I'm just letting you know, and I haven't said anything to the kids, but I need the kids to be looked after. Can you call your sister?
Okay.
And so he did. So he reached out to his sister. My sister-in-law and his brother-in-law were at my house in record time. And this is where community and family comes in.
That's
no questions asked, no nothing.
Beautiful.
Like, you need to go and we'll watch the kids. Even though they probably could have stayed by themselves, but I didn't know how long I was going to be there. So my sister-in-law came in. She gave me a hug. She was a bit teary.
Yeah.
And I said, the kids don't know. They know that I've been unwell, and they're not unfamiliar with me frequenting the hospital and having blood tests. So what I said to them was, oh, you know how I haven't been feeling well?
Yeah.
I just need to go to the hospital because I'm fevering and they're just going to test me. And are you all right, Mum? Yeah, I'll be all right, but Thea's going to be here just in case because Dad's away.
Yeah, yeah.
So no alarm bells for them because this was normal, I guess, for their mum being
They've been seeing this for a long time.
a long time.
Yeah.
Especially my son. My son used to come with me to the trials, and he used to, because he asked me, you know, why they take so much blood from me. And I used to say, oh, because mummy's got sick blood. And so that's how he always associated, oh, mummy's blood's sick. So this was very normal for them.
Yeah.
I make my way to emergency, do my check-in, and I'm sitting there and I am so sick.
Yeah.
Like, this was the day that if I hadn't have gone to the doctor to get tested, I would have taken myself to the hospital anyway, because I was so sick when I got there. And I'm glad my children didn't see me that sick, because otherwise it would have been at home, me being that sick.
Yeah, that image is hard to take away from a kid.
Yeah. And so everything happens the way that it's meant to, because my children's eyes needed to be protected from that.
True, yeah.
And I was really sick. Like, I was fevering so bad. My body was trembling. I was sore. My joints were sore. I was in all sorts.
Yeah.
And I found myself a corner where I could charge my phone in. And I thought, I need my sisters.
Yeah.
I don't want to scare my mum and dad. My dad's got dementia.
Yeah.
But I need my sisters. And there's no stronger bond, right?
Yeah.
These are the people that see you in every aspect, every facet of your life.
Yeah.
They see you through childhood, through your teen years, through adulthood. They are going to be there when your partner's no longer there,
True.
when your parents are no longer there.
When your kids go away.
These are the people
Yeah.
that have a shared experience with you.
True, yeah.
So I'm going to call my sisters.
Yeah.
And I put a message in the sister chat and I said, hey, you know how I've been feeling unwell for a little while? Well, I'm at the hospital because and I just said it, because they suspect I have leukemia. And the responses that I got back was WTF.
Yeah.
We'll be there. And they tag teamed it. So my middle sister came to be with me during the day up until she had to go off to work, and she stayed with me, got me water, kept me hydrated. I'd sleep on her. She tried to distract me. She's funny, my middle sister, so she'd make jokes and things like that and kind of make me laugh.
Yeah.
And then the changing of the guard happened, so she had to leave and my elder sister came.
Yeah.
And when my elder sister came, she was the one that walked me up to the ward.
Yeah.
So by this stage, it kind of got a lot more real for me.
It's happening.
Yeah. Like, I've been here for many hours. I'm really sick. I'm a pincushion by this stage.
Yeah.
It's still an emergency, but a pincushion. I'm seeing all these doctors. I'm coming in and out. They're doing eye tests. They're doing this. They're doing... It was just like, whoa. And it got really real. And then when they said, you know, you got to stay overnight for some observation. We got a room for you in the ward. I thought, okay.
Yeah.
It's just some observations, you know. Nothing's confirmed yet. It's still suspected.
Still, it's a story.
Yeah. And this story can go another way.
Yeah.
And that's where my hope lied. And they said, can you walk? Do you want to walk or do you want a wheelchair? And I thought, I don't need a wheelchair. I can walk. I'm capable.
Yeah.
And so we get in the lift. You know, we're talking. My sister and I are talking. The doors open. And we come out and we turn. And, you know, when you turn, you've got the corridor and the signs that say where everything is.
Yeah.
And it's on the new building. I'm in Prince of Wales Hospital, in the new side of the building. So we come out, turn, and I look up, and it says haematology and oncology. And it was instinctive. Both my sister and I reached, and we grabbed each other's hands.
Yeah.
And we held each other's hands, and both looked at the sign, and nothing was said. It was complete silence.
Yeah.
Not even the nurse that was walking us was talking.
No, yeah.
She didn't even tell us which way to go. I just knew when I saw the sign.
Yeah, yeah.
I just knew which way I had to go.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, what the fuck? And it was like a scream, like, what the fuck? And we're walking in silence. Hands held. We get in there. And the first nurse that greets me, her name is Lily, and she's going to be my nurse that night. She takes me to my room, room 29. My sister stays with me for a little bit. Still no tears, still no nothing, you know.
Yeah.
And then she leaves probably at around 10.
Yeah.
And when she leaves, that's when I give myself permission to cry.
So you're by yourself now?
So I'm by myself in
Yeah.
this dark room
Yeah.
with the idea that I potentially have leukemia,
Yeah.
but still with the hope that it's suspected. And I
Yeah.
held on to that word so tightly, Loki.
Yeah.
And Lily came in and she offered me some tea.
Yeah.
And she sat down with me. And again, kindness showed itself to me.
Yeah.
And she cried with me. And she said, you're going to be okay. You're going to be all right. She said, I see a lot of people come through here.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this for a long time, and I can always tell the people that are going to be okay. She said, you are going to be okay.
Yeah.
But she sat with me and she cried with me in that moment of darkness. She showed me kindness. And I spent the night there. The next day I had to have a bone marrow biopsy, so I told Paul everything that had kind of transpired that day before. I'm still here. They're going to do a bone marrow biopsy. It's still suspected. Again, do you want me to come? What are you going to come for? What can you do for me? Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing just yet. So I had my bone marrow biopsy. And when I tell you that is one of the most painful things that I have ever experienced in my life, I am not lying, and I have had 2 natural births.
Yeah. Yeah. People say that's the most painful thing. Yeah.
And you're not asleep for it. They give you a green whistle and you just suck on that green whistle, and you just got to pray to God that the person that's drilling into your hip to pull out that bone marrow does it as quickly as they can.
Wow.
And you cannot move. You must be still. So I had that done. And Alex was the guy that did it, the doctor that did it for me, and he was really lovely and he was really kind and really settled my nerves, and he was quick and efficient, and as painful as it was over and done with quite quickly. And then that afternoon, my doctor comes in, my hematologist walks in with 2 nurses. Right. I'm still alone.
Yeah.
And he sits down, and he's been my treating doctor for a while, so I know Shiv well. And he sits down and he's like, you got 2 kids, right? Yeah, I've got 2 kids. And where's your husband? Oh, he's off at work. And who's with the kids? And, just kind of having this chit chat. And I'm sitting on the bed. He's sitting on the chair on this side. The 2 nurses are to my left. And he leans forward on his knees and he looks at me and he says, I'm really sorry to tell you this. He didn't even have to finish.
Yeah.
I knew that I was now dropping suspected off what he was going to tell me.
Yeah.
And he said, you have leukemia. And I didn't cry. My stoic self came forward again.
Yeah.
And my first thought was my family. My family.
Yeah.
My children.
Yeah.
And Paul.
Yeah.
And because they were my first thought, my second thought was, okay, how do I beat this? How do I overcome this?
Yeah.
And so I said to him, so what do I need to do to get better? And then he went into what my plan was.
Yeah.
And I trusted in him.
Yeah.
I trusted in him and I trusted in my medical team.
Yeah.
And I found myself again in another situation in life where I was trusting other people to do right by me.
Yeah.
And I was giving myself over.
Yeah. So it's like a surrender to,
I'm
Yeah.
surrendering to this.
Yeah.
And this is my journey.
Yeah.
And because of everything that's come before this journey, I know that when I do get better, this is happening to me for a reason. I don't know what that reason is just yet,
Yeah. Yeah.
but there is a reason, because I am a firm believer there is always a silver lining.
True.
There is always a lesson to be learnt.
Yes.
And for whatever reason, I wasn't learning that lesson in another way. So the universe had to come and ankle tap me to bring me down, for me to be humble again,
Yeah.
so that I can be open to those lessons and learn them.
Yeah.
And so that's how I have treated my journey.
When you received that call in the kitchen, that 1 minute you said you had to just take a pause. What do you think was going in your head in that 1 minute before you called your husband?
I know how much he loves me. And I knew, because of who he is, that I was going to be delivering heartbreaking news to him.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be that person. I did not want to do that to him. I didn't want to hurt him.
Yeah.
And that was really hard. And even when I called him to confirm it,
Yeah.
I didn't want to hurt him. I knew I wasn't intentionally hurting him, but I knew it would hurt him, and I didn't want to do that to him.
So you're pretty much preparing how to deliver the news rather than observing what that news means to you.
Yeah, and
Because
I guess
you're preparing maybe in your head, suspected versus the other. And what was that night of, being with the nurse by yourself? That you felt this, okay, now I can express and accept what's happening. What do you think? What can you remember that night or that moment?
I didn't sleep very well that night. That's probably the first night of many
Yeah.
that I didn't sleep very well. My mind was just racing. I was just thinking about the procedure that I had to have the next morning, because I'd been told already that I had to have that. So I was thinking, how painful is that? Is it really going to be that painful? No, I've had 2
So
kids.
your head was racing with all things?
Racing with thoughts, racing about, what those results would be. It's still suspected, so it can't possibly be. But what if it is?
Yeah.
What do I do if it is? How do I tell Paul? How do we tell the kids?
Yeah.
I'm going to have chemo. My hair's going to fall out. I'm going to lose my eyelashes.
So you fast forwarded everything, yeah?
Everything.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of things that in that night I accepted off the bat. So I knew, okay, I'm going to lose my hair. I'm okay with that. Yeah, that's temporary. It'll grow back.
Yeah.
I'm going to lose my eyelashes. I'm going to lose. Vanity went out the window.
Wow.
In an instant, because it had zero importance in the scheme of things. That's just not important. It's not important. It's temporary. And that's not a reflection of who I am.
Yeah, true.
That went
Wow.
instantly.
That night, vanity left the door.
Instantly.
Acceptance walked in.
And it's such a beautiful thing, because that has continued even post.
Right.
Like right now I'm wearing this because I've got my hair's growing and it's really curly and it's like an 80s perm, so it's everywhere. So this kind of keeps it contained.
Yeah.
But I don't care. It's going to grow.
Yeah.
My eyelashes grew back. My eyebrows grew back.
Yeah.
That was all temporary. So that was the first thing I remember just really leaving me. But It's going to sound really bizarre, but I felt it physically leave. Like it was like this physical thing where I was just like, vanity, bin. Don't need that. That's not important.
Yeah. So whatever you are holding or whatever is holding you, you felt that moment was a turning point.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in that moment of darkness, you also saw light.
Because there is. Even in the world that we live in at night when it's dark,
Yeah.
the moon
Yes.
gives us light.
Yeah.
So there is always light in darkness. Always. We just have to make sure that we see it.
Right. Yeah. So how did your kids, family, everything else, how did everything came after?
So I had my bone marrow biopsy, had the results
Yeah.
that same afternoon.
Yeah.
But with leukemia, which is what I didn't know, is it's not just you've got acute myeloid leukemia. They then have to do the first testing just tells you you've got leukemia.
Yeah.
Then they have to do further testing on that bone marrow to determine what strand of leukemia you have, because there's like 26 different strands.
Wow.
And then within that, what type of mutation do you have that's particular to you? And then how do we treat that particular strand? Do we give you a stem cell? What are the likelihoods that you're going to relapse? Can be treated? There's a whole plethora of stuff that comes with this diagnosis that I had absolutely no knowledge about, other than leukemia is a blood cancer that is potentially fatal, and mine was quite aggressive. So more testing went on. I was taking some medication to bring down my white cells to a level where I could take on the chemo without it being quite so destructive.
Yeah.
Because my white cells were at like 168.
Yeah.
Ridiculously high. Like we're talking normal levels are anywhere between like 4 and max 11.
Yeah.
Right? I'm at 168. So you can imagine I was littered with blast cells in my body everywhere. So I took this medication for a couple of days, got my port in. I had a 3-lumen Hickman's. And that was another moment in itself as well. That for me was, this is real.
Yeah.
Even though I had already been delivered that information, even though I had had a bone marrow biopsy, there was still an element of hope in me that someone got it wrong. There was human error in there, right? There was a mistake. But when I had to get my port in, my Hickman's in, that was real. This is real. I am getting something put into my body that is going to treat this thing that I think is a figment of my imagination. It's no longer a figment. This is happening. And then my treatment was 24/7 because of the aggressive nature of my leukemia. So 24/7 meant that for 7 days, for 24 hours, I was tied up to chemo, dripping into my body. And I was still walking around, I made friends with the cleaners, with the people there, talking, just being my normal self. I had bloated out a lot, like fully bloated out. And I remember thinking, this isn't that bad. Everyone complains about how bad chemo is. This isn't that bad. Like, I'm doing okay. And then when I came off the chemo, so I had my 7 days. On the 8th day I came off, and it hit me like a fucking freight train. Like, it hits you when you are off it.
In what sense?
In every sense. The vomiting, the aching body, the pains, everything. I started getting floaters in my vision. I was getting headaches. My platelets were rapidly dropping. So in every sense of the word. And then exactly 72 hours after I came off chemo. So I had already had 2 code blues within the first 48 hours of coming off chemo. And then my 3rd code blue was actually Paul was with me. And that's when I was rushed to ICU. So 72 hours after, I was in intensive care fighting for my life.
Wow.
And even before going in there, I only had 2 little platelets, and my sister, my middle sister, who's quite funny, she came in. My family was there all the time visiting. She came in and she drew 2 little platelets holding hands, and we'd make a joke. And it's like, oh, look, 2 little platelets running around my body trying to stop all the bleeding and everything, trying to see the light, trying to make humour of a situation that was not humorous at all, but we needed to find a way to deal with what was happening.
Yeah.
And so I end up in ICU, and my recollection of ICU, Lockie, if I'm honest, is very scattered, and I don't have many memories of that time because I was sedated. I was on fentanyl. I was on everything.
Yeah.
I was in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And somehow, through the grace of God or through the grace of the universe or because of all of the good deeds that I had done beforehand,
Yeah.
it came back. And my family came to say bye to me. I know that I only knew after the fact that, Paul was brought in and told that I had a 1 to 5% chance of survival because I had had a stroke.
Yeah.
And I was bleeding out internally. And that was one of the things that I knew, though. I knew that when you have chemo and you have leukemia, that the 2 things that can kill you are infection or bleeding out. For me, it was I was bleeding out and there was nothing they could do. They were pumping me with platelets and blood products and all of these things, and my body was just not responding. And when I was in that ICU state, I didn't know whether I was coming or going, day or night. But I remember, I'm going to call it a near-death experience. I remember walking down this long, dark hallway.
Yeah.
And I was lost and I felt confused and I didn't know where I was.
Yeah.
And then in the horizon, I see a really bright light. And so I walk towards it because I think that's where I need to go.
Yeah.
And I'm walking towards it, walking, starting to feel a bit more calm, like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not so scared anymore.
Yeah.
And then when I get there, there's 4 people.
Mm-hmm.
I have my late uncle.
Yeah.
I have Paul's grandfather.
Yeah.
I have a family friend of ours. And I have my grandmother.
Okay.
And they're standing kind of like, if I can describe it, it's like almost like an arch, and there's
Half circle. Yeah.
half circle.
Yeah.
And there's some beautiful pillars and
Yeah.
and it's just white behind them, and they're standing there. But I'm seeing them like in a physical form of how they used to dress. My grandmother's even wearing her famous celeste blue cardigan, like all buttoned up, and her hair in a bun and the grey hair. And when I get there, I see them. And I acknowledge that I see them, and I say, oh, Manuel. Manuel is my uncle.
Yeah.
And he looks at me and he does that. And Paul's grandfather, I say, Tata. And he looks at me very sternly. There's no acknowledgement. There's no good to see you type thing. He's just looking at me.
Oh, okay.
And then I see Charito.
Yeah.
And I say, Charito. And she does the same that my uncle does. And she kind of gives me this acknowledging smile, like,
Yeah.
kind of like, you're here, but you shouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm.
And then my grandmother, and I say, Mama Pachis. And she looks at me and she turns her head to the side. She doesn't look at me.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking in that moment, why don't they love me?
Yeah.
Why don't they love me? I'm here. Like, I haven't seen you guys in so long.
Yeah.
Why aren't you embracing me? And I just stand there and it's silence. Nothing's spoken.
They're not moving. You're there. They just acknowledge, but nothing else happened.
And I'm standing there confused again, like
thinking,
why don't you love me?
Yeah.
And then I hear footsteps. And how I liken those footsteps is like men's shoe with like a wooden stack heel.
Oh, yeah.
Walking
Yeah.
on wooden floor. And I hear that, and I hear it in the distance, and it's getting closer and closer and closer, and then I see an image of a man. And then he walks through the gap that they have left.
Yeah.
And it's my grandfather. Nothing is said. And I acknowledge that it's him, and I say, Papa Aurelio. And he comes closer and he outstretches his arms like that to me. And I walk towards him and we embrace. And I'm hugging him like this is my grandfather I haven't seen in so long, and it felt so real to me.
Yeah.
So real, like I felt the hug, the embrace. And then I just felt this warmth radiate from him, like this. Our chests were together and I was leaning on him like that, my head on his shoulder. And I could feel that he was radiating this heat, and it was coming into me.
So it's like an energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this light, this, I don't know what it was. And I was just taking it all in because it felt beautiful.
Yeah.
I felt so much love, and I felt calm, and I felt at peace. And then when he finished giving me that energy, that strength, whatever it was that he was giving me, we pulled away and we held hands. And he said to me, Hijita, no es tu tiempo. My daughter, it's not your time.
Wow.
And we held hands and we looked. And he said, you need to go back. And he
Showed
me the same dark road that I had walked to get there. You have to go back. And nothing was said again, and I kind of took that in. And I said to him that I was scared. Tengo miedo. I'm scared. And he said, I'll walk with you. And we held hands. And we walked in silence. And I just walked with my grandfather. We walked and walked, and it felt like we were walking for ages. And then when we got to the end of where that corridor was, the end of his realm,
Yeah.
and he said, hasta acá nomás, up to here only.
Oh.
Yo no puedo pasar. I can't go over. I can't go there with you. This is where this is the very last point that I can walk you to. You
Have to take your step there. Yeah.
And he let go of my hand and he said, anda, go. And again I said, I'm scared.
Yeah.
And he said, todo va a estar bien. Everything will be all right, but you must go.
Yeah.
And again, I trusted. The trust came in, yeah? And I turned around and I walked. And I walked with all of that fear
Yeah.
because I didn't know where I was walking to. And I walked because I knew that I was never going to see him like that again.
Yeah.
And I was going to feel his embrace like that again.
Yeah.
And when I woke up to Paul telling me, babe, your platelets are at 10. How did that happen?
Wow.
When he was told that only a miracle would get me through.
Yeah.
That was my miracle. That embrace, that hug that he gave me, whatever he put into my body, the strength, the love, that was what got me through. That was what made me. I walked back into my life.
Wow. So you have seen, touched the darkness of death. And somehow your grandfather sent you back.
It wasn't my time. And he was right. It wasn't my time. For many reasons now, I see.
Yeah. So you started to get better after that?
I did. I started to get better. My platelets started to increase. I was moved out of ICU and moved back into the ward. And when I finally moved back into the ward, that's when I finally had a bit more coherence. Like I wasn't so reliant on the medication, and because I had a catheter, and so I didn't really understand what was happening to my body. And it wasn't until one day I woke up when I got moved back into the ward, and I realised I can't see. I can't move my body.
Yeah.
What the fuck happened? So I pressed the buzzer. The nurse comes in and I said, I can't see. I have no vision in my left eye. I can't see.
Yeah.
And I said, and like, why can't I go to the toilet? Like, why can't I move?
Yeah.
And that's when she told me what had happened, that I had had a major bleed on my brain, which was obviously a stroke.
Yeah, yeah.
That my vision was impaired. They needed to get me occupational health and safety, and that, you know, they're going to get me rehabilitation so that I can walk again.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Wow.
I'm 39. What do you mean I can't walk? What do you mean I can't go to the toilet? What do you mean I can't brush my own teeth? I can't do any of these things for myself, and I'm a highly independent, very capable, very productive, very on-the-go person. What do you mean?
Yeah.
And that was really difficult for someone like me to take in, because, and this was one of my lessons, it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah. Your stoic mindset. Right?
Yeah, yeah. That served me for when I needed it, for when I was, you know, repressing what happened to me in childhood, repressing what happened to me at 15. I needed to be stoic to go on, to function, to not be filled with hate, to not hate all men.
Yeah.
I needed that, and it served me well then.
Yeah.
But it also wasn't a positive thing always. I needed to allow myself to be loved and to love freely and to not always, I didn't need to always be strong.
Yeah. We can be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Vulnerability is a strength.
That's right. And that was my lesson. And had this not happened to me, maybe I would have learnt that lesson, but how long would that have taken me?
Yeah.
At the expense of maybe my marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what they say. Until we learn, we've been put in the same situations again and again and again. That's how life works.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow.
And so then I got told I was in remission, so that was something to celebrate. So any small victory has been we got to celebrate. This is a victory, right?
Oh, yeah. This is biggest victory.
This is the biggest victory, even the smallest things.
Yeah.
And so through this journey of being sick and getting better, I rediscovered joy again. I found joy in the smallest of things. And my first recollection of feeling that joy again, of that true joy, of that young girl showering in South America with her cousins in that shower.
Right now I see that in your eyes.
Yeah.
That kid's joy.
Yeah. Was me being able to brush my teeth again.
Yeah.
And I cried
Wow.
because I can brush my own teeth.
Yeah.
So simple, right?
So simple, but
It brought me so much joy
nice. Yeah.
because this is one thing that I can now do for myself. So if I can do this, if I can learn how to do this, I can absolutely learn how to walk again.
True. Wow. What a turnaround. One night.
One night,
One night.
one phone call.
Yeah. One phone call. One night. And a hug from your grandfather. What did you tell him after? When you got back home?
So I told my mum about it,
Yeah.
told my cousins because that was their dad
Of course. Yeah.
that was there. And my auntie had actually come to visit me
Yeah.
whilst I was in ICU before she went back to South America. That was already planned for her to go back.
All right. Yeah.
And just for a bit of context, my mum and my auntie have not spoken in almost 20 years. I haven't spoken to my cousins as well because I took my mum's side, and I don't even remember what it was about because that's usually what happens. But because I'm so close to my mum, took my mum's side, I'm going to support my mum.
Yeah.
And when this happened to me and I realised that in that moment when I needed someone, it was my sisters
Yeah.
that I called upon, that bond that nobody can break.
Yeah.
And I realised if I need my sisters in this moment, my mum, I'm my mum's child.
Yeah.
She's suffering and she's in pain. She only has one sister here.
Yeah.
She needs her sister.
Yeah.
And so I said to my mum, Mum, whatever's happened, let bygones be bygones. There is no stronger bond than that of family. The same way I need my sisters, you need yours.
Yeah.
And I want to reconnect with my cousins and I want to reconnect with my auntie.
Nice.
And now we're reconnected. So it took me nearly dying.
Yeah. To reconnect.
And isn't that sad though, in a way?
It is.
That I had to be, I see myself as almost that vessel for that reconnection, not just for my own reconnection with them, but for my mother as well. So that's why this needed to happen to me, because my relationship with my mum is that of such strength that only I would have been able to get her to reconnect.
Otherwise, there won't be any.
Otherwise, if it was one of my sisters, it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. So it has to come from you.
It had to be me.
Through your experience.
It had to be me.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that
Yeah.
because that's part of my life plan.
True. Yeah.
And so when my auntie came to visit, I was told later that she was in South America already when I came out of ICU. And I said to my mum, I want her to go and visit my grandfather's grave and give him some flowers from me and tell him thank you.
Beautiful.
And that's what she did on my behalf.
Yeah. So looking back at, so it looks like from your 30s, this health journey was never ending. You're doing all things in life, you're dealing with this on the side, and suddenly, you had to go deeper into the darkness, and then you feel the radiant energy from your grandfather. And then you come out, not just helping yourself, but family members, connection. And when you look back at it, what do you think is this? Is this, some people call it spiritual experience. Some people call it divine experience. And some say, I have faith in, higher power. What is it? So basically what I'm trying to ask here is, did your relationship with faith, God, divine power, changed after this experience?
Absolutely. I mean, I always believed in spirituality, and that was the path that I was on before getting sick.
Okay.
But I feel like somewhere in my life,
Yeah.
I lost some faith.
Okay.
And this has just kind of brought me back to it, that there is a higher power. There is something greater than all of us.
Right.
And we have to be open to listening to it,
Yeah.
feeling it.
Yeah. So how did you feel before your grandfather came? Because that image is still in my head.
It's still in mine.
Yeah. When you felt unloved because they haven't moved. But did it teach you something, like saying, hey, have patience? The real guy is coming.
Yeah, absolutely. It showed me that I was loved,
Yeah.
because he poured all of that into me. And I remember telling my sisters that I felt for a very long time after I got better, after I came out of that comatose state almost that I was in, I was crying all the time, and I felt overwhelmed with
Yeah.
love. I felt like there was just so much love and calmness and peace within me that I couldn't contain it. I couldn't manage it. It would just felt like it was just so, it felt like that. I was gasping for air because it was just, I was like drowning in it.
Yeah.
And so what I take from that is that I was given all of that love because I need to share that.
Yeah.
That's for sharing. That's not just all for me. That's for sharing with my children, with my husband, with my dogs, with my parents, with my friends,
Yeah.
with my colleagues, in the work that I do. It's for sharing. That's not all yours.
What advice would you give for people who are going through terminal illness or health issues, or who are about to face them? What would you like from your own experiences? Because what you have gone through, of course, we can imagine, but only you have experienced it. There's plenty out there going through this in silence, going through this in shadows. They don't share, they don't, but what is it you can give them if they are listening?
If they're listening, I think, well, no, I don't think, I know that your mindset
Yeah.
plays a huge part.
Yeah.
Having a positive mindset,
Yeah.
trusting, there's that word again, trusting in yourself
Yeah.
and trusting in your team that's looking after you as well.
Yeah.
But it's your mindset. The moment you think that you are going to be defeated, you will be defeated.
I like that. Yeah. So this is exactly what you said to the doctor. How can I get better?
How can I get better?
I remember that. After explaining everything, okay, great. How can I get better?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Now that's yeah. So the mindset, and hope, having faith.
And that it's not so bad on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. And once you have accepted, and you have kicked out vanity that night, there's a lot of lessons there.
Lots of lessons.
Lots of lessons. The list will go on. But I think on a higher end, what I could think of here is you have accepted reality and thought about family connections, loved ones, and you look to get better. And also you went through the darkness where you saw this energy from your own, family lineage. And all this comes with something deeper within you, which is never to give up.
Yeah.
That stoicism is there,
Yes.
but also in the darkest moments, you're like, nah, I'll keep going.
Yeah.
And 1% chance you turn that. And one night, suddenly that, the number going up, it's a miracle. And before we close, I want to ask one thing.
Okay.
A genie, an angel, a genie with 3 wishes
Yes.
comes to you and says, Vanessa, we have 3 wishes to grant to you, and these will be granted at 6 p.m. today. What would you choose?
I would choose for my loved ones to always experience health.
Health, yeah.
It's the most important thing.
Yeah.
I would wish that all my loved ones have a life that is full,
Complete. Yeah.
with the positive and the negative, not just
Whatever they have to go through.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And that all my loved ones have the strength always to persevere.
Okay. All 3 wishes are for your loved ones. What about you?
For me,
Just one for you?
one for me
Yeah.
in this lifetime. I wish to learn all the lessons that I was put here to learn, so that I can be reincarnated as a dog. Because they have the best lives.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing your journey today. Thank you for sharing the most vulnerable moments you have gone through. And for me, they are the strengths we all, have within, but not really shared. So thank you for having the courage to come today and share everything you shared. And the beautiful thing about everything you shared is, for me, what's resonating in my head is family, faith, cooking, travel, health, all the most important things which actually makes an individual's life complete. You use the word complete. I like that. And one of the key things I learned today, listening to your story, there was moments where I resonated some of the things you mentioned, is because my daughter was born at RPA. I spent over 2 years in that building. So when you're sharing those things, I was also going through some of my own personal journey. Yeah. So thank you for bringing that energy back in me as well. And you are our everyday hero who have gone through everything in silence. And I hope the message, what you shared today, really helps people out there who are facing whatever they're facing, either with health or with motherhood or with family.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening, Chat with Loki. Follow and subscribe for more wisdom from everyday heroes.